20 years. 2 decades have passed since a promising medical student vanished without a trace in the heart of Ohio's capital. The case of Brian Shaffer remains one of the most perplexing disappearances in modern American history. A young man surrounded by friends in a crowded bar, yet somehow erased from existence in a matter of hours. Tonight we revisit the mystery that has haunted investigators, devastated a family, and captivated true crime enthusiasts for 2 decades. It was March 31st, 2006. Brian Shaffer, a 27-year-old medical student at Ohio State University, decided to spend his evening like countless young professionals do. He headed out with friends for a night of drinking and revelry. The destination was Ugly Tuna Saloon, a popular bar located in the Arena district of downtown Columbus. It was the last decision he would make before stepping into oblivion. Brian arrived at the bar around 1 o'clock in the morning on April 1st. He wasn't alone. He was accompanied by friends who would later become crucial witnesses in what would become a baffling investigation. The bar was crowded, filled with the typical Friday night atmosphere of laughter, conversation, and clinking glasses. For hours, Brian moved through the establishment, drinking, socializing, and enjoying what seemed like an ordinary night out. But there was one element that would transform this night from ordinary to extraordinary. Above the entrance of Ugly Tuna Saloon sat a security camera. Its lens captured every single person who entered and exited the bar throughout the entire evening. Investigators would later meticulously review this footage, frame by frame, watching patrons come and go. They could account for nearly everyone who passed through that door. Nearly everyone. Except Brian Shaffer. As the night wore on, Brian separated from his friends inside the bar. This wasn't unusual. People drift apart in crowded venues. But when his companions looked around and couldn't locate him, concern began to set in. They searched the bar. They called his name. Nothing. Brian Shaffer had simply vanished. When they reviewed the security footage, the answer only deepened the mystery. The camera had recorded every exit. Brian was not among them. The Ugly Tuna Saloon was not a standalone establishment. It occupied space within a larger building complex. The bar itself was accessible through an escalator system that connected to a movie theater lobby and administrative spaces. Most people, when they thought of exiting the bar, assumed there was only one logical way out. The camera monitored entrance, but the building held secrets. There were other passages, secondary exits, routes that wound through the theater spaces and administrative corridors, passages that few people would naturally consider using. For investigators, this raised a critical question. If Brian had not exited through the main entrance, had he left through one of these alternative routes? And if so, why would he have taken such an unconventional path? The timeline was crucial. Brian's friends last confirmed seeing him inside the bar around 2 o'clock in the morning. Shortly after, he could no longer be found. The building was under construction at various points during that period. There were unfinished sections, scaffolding, debris, and areas that were actively undergoing renovation. These were not spaces designed for public access. One particular theory emerged from investigators and independent researchers examining the case. Near one of the secondary exits, construction work was active. This exit would have placed Brian just a few hundred feet from the bar, in an area he might not have been fully aware of while intoxicated. The theory suggested that Brian, disoriented by alcohol, and perhaps attempting to find an alternative exit, may have encountered the construction area and fallen victim to a tragic accident. The building itself was massive. It contained connective tissue between multiple commercial spaces. Large buildings with extensive underground infrastructure, basement levels, and hidden compartments. If an accident had occurred near the construction area, it was theoretically possible that Brian's remains could have been incorporated into the foundation itself, buried beneath concrete and steel, hidden in plain sight within one of downtown Columbus's most frequented buildings. The investigation that followed was exhaustive. Police interviewed everyone who had been in contact with Brian that night. They reviewed footage. They explored every theory. They considered foul play. They examined the possibility of voluntary disappearance, but nothing fit cleanly. No witnesses reported seeing him leave the building. No evidence of him boarding a vehicle or traveling elsewhere surfaced. His family remained bewildered. Brian had everything to live for. He was on a promising career path. He had close relationships. He had no apparent reason to vanish. The medical student simply ceased to exist at some point between 2 and 3 o'clock on the morning of April 1st, 2006. 20 years have passed. Brian Shaffer's case remains unsolved. No body has ever been recovered. No definitive evidence of what transpired has ever materialized. His family continues to seek answers. True crime communities continue to speculate. New theories emerge. Old theories are revisited. Based on the evidence available and the geography of the location, one theory stands out for its logical consistency. If Brian did exit through an alternative passage that night, disoriented and intoxicated, he would have only traveled a short distance before encountering the active construction zone. In a state of inebriation, navigation becomes compromised. Judgment becomes impaired. What seemed like a viable exit route could quickly become a hazardous situation. The tragedy may have been quick. A fall, a structural collapse, an accident in an unstable construction area that an intoxicated young man wandered into at 2 in the morning. And if that occurred, his remains may not have disappeared at all. They may simply be entombed within the very building he was trying to exit, buried beneath concrete, lost to the foundation itself. The ugly tuna saloon still operates. The building still stands, and somewhere within its structure, 20 years of mystery remains unresolved.